Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation, in which we are going to talk about how to automate processes with visual workflow, with and without code. My name is Alba Conarribas. I work as an architecture lead for supply chain management product area at FinancialForce, and this is my email and my Twitter handle in case that you want to contact me later.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Agustina Garcia. I work as Principal Software Engineer at FinancialForce.com. Also, I'm Salesforce MVP, and you can find my information here. FinancialForce is the #1 cloud ERP, and for SFDC customer using FinancialForce is a no-brainer because we seamlessly connect their front office activities with their back office. We are more than 700 employees around the world, and we work on different products like financial management and product automation. Our headquarters is here in San Francisco, but we also have offices in Harrogate, UK, and in Granada, Spain, where Alba and myself are based. Let you know that we are under recruiting, so come to visit us at booth number 324. This is the agenda. We will talk about what is visual workflow, and via use case, we will start creating flows from scratch, something really simple, and we will start making a little bit more complex till the end. Finally, you will have some takeaways.
So first of all, I want to explain the difference between some concepts that may sound difficult to understand or confusing in Salesforce. So I'm sure that most of you already know workflow. Workflow is a tool with which you can model actions that will execute behind the scenes when a record is changed. However, visual workflow is a complete product with which you can drag and drop in boxes, automate processes. These processes will usually be a way to collect and manipulate user data. So to sum up, visual workflow is the name of the product. Cloud Flow Designer is the tool with which you can drag and drop those boxes to build your processes. Flows are the things that you create, the processes that you automate. And flow interviews are running instances of these flows. There are several types of flows that you can create with visual workflow. So let's talk about the first one, the basic flow one. This flow typically will allow you to create a survey, a wizard, something with visual elements that the user has to follow to input some data, etc. Typically, you will distribute this flow, sending a URL to the customer, for example, in an email, or embedding that URL in a custom button, in a link, embedding the flow in a FinancialForce page, etc. We have a second type of flow that you can create also with the product, which is called Autolaunched. Typically, this flow doesn't require user interaction. It's something that is going to be launched through Apex code, REST API, something like that, and that is going to perform automate processes. For example, sending an email, posting to Chatter, something similar. And finally, we have a third type, which is used to provision users to third-party apps, but we are not going to talk about this one today.
Okay, so this is the use case that we will talk about. As an end user, I would like to book my own hotel via Salesforce so that I don't need to go to an agency. Once I leave the hotel, I want to pay for that, and an invoice should be generated for that. Also, I will receive a survey via email in order to provide my feedback. Finally, a third-party system wants to use my flow as well in order to do reservations too. But let us start with the simplest one, book the hotel, that's all. So let's go to the organization and see how it works. I have my tab with the flow, so I select Barcelona Granada Congress. Look for family room. Oh, sorry, I think I click, yes, that's fine, sorry. Family room for the weekend. However, this room is not available. So start again. This time I will go for suite room. It should be big enough for the family. But the price is too high, so I decided not to go with the reservation. And I will start again. I really like Barceló, so I will try it again. This time I will go for Junior Suite Room. For the weekend, same dates. The price is fine this time. So I create the reservation. Now if I go to here and I refresh the page, I can see my new reservation in the system. And how I have done this? First of all, the first screen has some text code, welcome screen, with a pick list that provides all the hotels that I have in my database in a dynamic way. I want to do that because if in the future I have some other hotels or I make any modifications, I don't want to change my flow. I want to pick that information. In order to do that, I need to create a dynamic record choice. It will provide me this dynamic way to retrieve things. First of all, we need to specify the object that I want to show the information in the pick list, the hotel. I need to specify which field I'm going to show in the drop-down list, the name. And also, I have to create a variable in order to store some information related to the hotel that I have selected, the ID this time. After that, in the next screen, is the facilities related to this hotel. It's also a dynamic record choice, another pick list. But this time, I'm going to filter by the hotel ID that I retrieved from the previous screen. Finally, instead of just getting the ID of the hotel or the facility this time, I'm going to create a facility selected as object, and I'm going to get all the information related to that. Why I have done that instead of just the ID? Because in a later step, I want to show, for example, the facility amount, the price. If I just have the ID, I need to add another step in order to retrieve all the information that I need. Doing in this way, I have everything in one go. The next step is a fast lookup. I'm going to retrieve those reservations that I have with the information, check-in and check-out date, and the facility that I have selected, and get a reservation variable with all the rooms that are not available. Why I have used a fast lookup instead of a record lookup? This is because with fast lookup, we can retrieve a list of elements. However, with record lookup, we can only get the first record that matches the filter criteria. The next screen is a decision. Do I have reservation? So you cannot continue with the reservation itself. Or yes, the room is available for this day, so go ahead with that. The next steps are similar to those that we have seen till now. The only one that is new is the creation. In order to create a record, we only need to pass the object that I want to create, the information related to this new record, check-in and check-out dates, the guest ID, and finally, I have created a variable in order to store the ID of the new record that I have created, the new reservation. This time, I go for a record create instead of a fast create. The main difference is that with fast create, we need to pass an S-object with all the information. So I need a previous step in order to populate all the information. However, with record create, I can pass all the information in this single step. I'm just saving one step. That's all for the simplest use case. The next one is a little bit more complex, the flow itself, but at the end it's going to provide a better user interface. I'm going to have a dynamic record choice with all the hotels, but the facility is a hard text picked list. I'm not going to retrieve the information related to the hotel because we don't get the ID of the hotel till we don't click the next button. So having this information, the flow looks like this one. I have the welcome screen with the pick list that I showed you before. With a fast lookup, we retrieve the list of reservations that I have with that information. And via a loop, I'm going to iterate for every single reservation, and via an assignment, I'm going to retrieve the facilities related to this reservation and create a list of facilities booked. Now what I need to do is to get those facilities that are available. However, Salesforce doesn't provide a step in order to filter by a list of elements. That's the moment that you need to include some code. In order to do that, you have two options: create a class and implement process plugin interface, or you can also use add invocable method. My preferences is go for this annotation. One of these is because it allows you to use collections, and that's exactly what I need as an argument, a list of facilities. So my class will have an inner class with facility parameters, the list of facilities IDs that are booked, and the hotel ID. Then pass these arguments, and with the so-called query, I retrieve those facilities that are available. Once I save the class, it will appear under the Apex section in the designer, and via drag and drop, I just pop up, and I'm able to provide the information, the facilities booked that I got via the loop and the assignment in the flow, and the hotel ID. And that's all for this use case. Alba?
Okay, so continuing with our booking system, now what we want to do is that once the reservation is paid, we will send an email to the customer with a link that redirects him to a survey. In that survey, we want to get the feedback about his stay at the hotel. For modeling this use case, we are really going to create two flows. The first flow is going to send the email once the reservation is paid, and the second flow is going to be the survey. For the first flow, first of all, I have to create a record lookup because I need to retrieve the guest email. Then I will add a second step, which is standard, is the send email one. This will appear under the static action section, and you can specify the body and the subject. For example, you could use email templates if you want to. But in this case, we have used the simple test variables. We have said that we want to call this flow once the reservation is paid. So we need that the flow is an auto-launch flow. And how are we going to call it? Well, what we have to do is to write some Apex code on the reservations trigger that once the reservation is paid, instantiates my flow. Remember at the beginning when I talked about interviews. Interviews are running instances of flow. And in Apex, this is the way of creating them. If the flow needs any information, you can pass that information as a parameter. In this case, the guest and the hotel name. Let's see a demo of this. Oh, sorry. This is the reservation that Agustina has just done. So I'm going to pay the reservation. And let's go to the email. Yes, here it is. I have received the email that redirects me to the survey flow. The survey flow is a simple basic flow in which we have a set of screens to retrieve the user feedback. Nothing special to highlight here. But what about your learning experience? What we could do is to take this flow and embed it on the homepage, for example. You can do that thanks to the flow component that is going to be available for you in App Builder and that you can drag and drop and place it wherever you prefer in the page. Then you will be able to specify the flow that you want to show there. Obviously, it has to be a basic flow with visual steps and the layout or any information that the flow is going to need. Additionally, if you place this component in a record detail page, the record ID of the record that you are viewing will be available for you. So what you can do is to add a step in the flow, which is a record lookup, to retrieve information for that specific record and show it into the flow. Let's see a demo of this. So here, I'm going to switch to Lightning Experience. And if I go to the record homepage of a guest, I can see that my survey flow is already here. I can click on Next, get the feedback, etc. If we open this page in a builder, we can see that this is simply the flow component that we have dragged from here. And here I'm using my survey flow. The important thing to know is that you can specify to which variable do you want to pass the record ID. And this is feasible since winter 18. Before, the only possibility was to have a parameter in the flow called record ID. But now you can choose to which variable do you want to pass that information. So continuing with our booking system, apart from sending an email to the user once the reservation is paid, we want also to create an invoice. For that, we are going to use a third-party package that we are going to install in our organization. And this third-party package is going to contain a flow that we can use as part of our send email flow. If you install a package that contains flows, these flows are going to appear automatically for you in the flow section. So what you can do is simply drag and drop that flow and use it as part of any other flow that you have defined in your organization. In this case, apart from sending the email, once the reservation is paid, we will create the invoice calling this third-party package. This flow, this third-party package flow, needs some information as the guest name of the total amount. As we were invoking the flow once the reservation was paid in the trigger with Apex code, what we can do is to modify that trigger code and include the information that this flow is going to need. These flows, as they come from a package, will have a namespace as anything that comes from a package in Salesforce. Finally, our last use case is that we want to expose our reservation system to a third party, a partner, a third-party booking system who wants to use our system and create a reservation in our system. For that, what we can do is to create a simple flow with just one step, a record create. But the important thing of this flow is that we need it to be auto-launched. Why? Because if you do a flow, or if you make a flow that is auto-launched, an endpoint is going to be automatically created for you on the REST API. And then any third party will be able to call this endpoint here, passing in the information that we need for creating the reservation, and that will work fine. So finally, some takeaways. Visual workflow has nothing to do with workflow. Simply, Salesforce is very bad at naming. It will allow you to, visual workflow will allow you to model processes, to collect data from the users with clicks, not code, but also you can extend those processes with Apex. And we have two main types, which is the basic flow with visual elements, survey, etc., and the auto-launch one, which is simply acting in the background. This works in Lightning Experience. You can start using it right now. And you can distribute flows and package them to your customers if you need to. And that's all for this presentation. Thank you so much. If you have any questions. Questions?
No.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.